She still doesn't know I took all her money and sold her jewelry. My daughter's voice cut through the partially open kitchen door like a cry of victory. I froze in the hallway, the grocery bags hanging from my trembling hands. I had just returned from shopping. I'd forgotten my phone at home and came back earlier than expected. "Honey, you're a genius," I heard the voice of Mark, my son-in-law, respond between laughs. "How much did you get in total?" "Almost $40,000 from her accounts, plus another $15,000 for the jewelry I sold at the jewelry store downtown. That old woman doesn't even check her bank statements. She trusts me like an idiot." The sound of silverware against plates continued. They were eating the food I had bought with my pension in the house I helped pay for, while they planned to destroy me. "And you're sure she doesn't suspect anything?" Mark asked with his mouth full. "Not at all. This morning I told her I needed her card to buy medicine and she gave it to me without asking. She's so naive, it's laughable. She's always been like that, her whole life thinking I'm her good little girl." Their laughter resonated in my chest like something physical, as if my own heart were tearing itself apart inside my body. The grocery bags fell to the floor with a dull thud. Oranges rolled down the hallway. A gallon of milk broke, and the white liquid began to spread across the hardwood floor. But I couldn't move. "Honey, have some more chicken," I heard Emily, my daughter, my only daughter, say in that sweet voice I knew so well. "Now we can really eat well. With all that money, we can take that trip to Cancun you wanted and buy the new car. She's never going to know it was us." "What if she checks her accounts?" "She won't. I told her months ago that I would handle her finances because she's too old to understand that stuff. She signed the papers without reading. She has my name on all her accounts as an authorized user. Legally, I can do whatever I want." "You're brilliant, honey. Brilliant." I backed away with slow steps, careful not to make a sound. My breathing had become shallow and painful. Every inhale burned my throat. Tears began to fall down my cheeks. But I didn't make a sound, not a single sound. I left the house through the front door, leaving behind the grocery bags, the spilled milk, and the remnants of the life I had built believing my daughter loved me. The cold November air hit my face, but I barely felt it. I walked aimlessly down the street, not knowing where to go, not knowing what to do. $40,000. My life's savings. The money I had saved penny by penny working as a nurse for 40 years. The overtime hours I took when Emily needed braces. The night shifts I accepted to pay for her college. Every dollar I didn't spend on myself so she could have a better future. And the jewelry. Oh God, the jewelry. The engagement ring my husband Robert gave me when I was 23 years old. The pearl earrings he gave me when Emily was born. The gold bracelet that belonged to my mother. The only thing I had left of her after she died, all sold as if it were trash, as if my history was worth nothing. I found myself sitting on a park bench, 3 blocks from the house. I didn't remember walking there. The sun was beginning to set, and the sky was stained with orange and pink, but to me, everything looked gray. A young mother was pushing her little daughter on the swings. The girl laughed with that crystal-clear laugh children have when they are happy, and the world hasn't yet taught them that people can be cruel. I used to push Emily on those same swings so many years ago. I took her to the park every afternoon after my shift at the hospital, even if I was exhausted, even if my feet hurt so much I could barely walk. She would shout, "Higher, Mommy, higher," and I would push harder, wanting to give her the entire sky if I could. When did that girl with the crystal-clear laugh turn into the woman I had just heard planning my ruin? I took my phone out of my pocket with trembling hands. I opened my banking app. It took me 3 attempts to enter my password correctly because my fingers wouldn't stop shaking. When I finally got into my account, the screen showed me the truth I already knew but still refused to fully believe. Available balance: $847.32. 2 months ago, I had $38,450 in that account. My savings account, which had taken me decades to build. I checked the transaction history, and there they were, one after another, transfers to Emily's account. $1,000 here, $2,000 there, $5,000 more. All authorized with my name, but I had never, ever made those transfers. I checked my other account, the checking account where my pension was deposited each month. Balance: $125.80. $2.67. My pension for this month had been $2,100, deposited just 5 days ago. I felt something break inside me, but it wasn't my heart. It wasn't sadness that was growing in my chest. It was something different, something cold and clear like river water in winter. It was clarity. It was the absolute understanding that my daughter didn't see me as her mother. She saw me as a source of money, as something to be used and discarded. "Are you all right, ma'am?" A male voice pulled me from my thoughts. A young man, maybe 30 years old, was looking at me with genuine concern. "I saw you from over there, and it looked like you were crying." I touched my cheeks and was surprised to find them wet. I hadn't realized I was crying. "I'm fine," I lied. "Because that's what you do. You smile and say you're fine even when the world is falling apart. Just remembering things. Do you need me to call someone? A family member?" The irony of that question almost made me laugh. My only family was the person who had stolen everything from me. "No, thank you. Really, I'm fine." The young man walked away with one last look of concern. I stayed there, sitting, as night began to fall over the city. The park lights turned on automatically. Mothers gathered their children to take them home, to dinner, to bed, to continue with their normal lives where daughters didn't steal from their mothers. I thought about going back to the house, about confronting Emily, about screaming at her, demanding explanations, asking her how she could do this to me. But something stopped me. A small but clear voice in my head told me that if I went back now, if I confronted her without a plan, I would lose any chance of getting back what was mine. Emily had said she had my name on all the accounts as an authorized user, that I had signed papers. I remembered those papers now. 6 months ago, when I turned 67, Emily had arrived with a folder full of documents. "Mom, it's important that we have everything organized," she had told me in that affectionate voice that I now understood was pure manipulation. "In case anything happens to you, I need to be able to access your accounts to pay your medical bills or whatever you need. It's just a precaution to take better care of you." And I, like the fool I was, signed everything without reading. Because I trusted her. Because she was my daughter. Because never, not even in my worst nightmares, did I imagine that my own blood could betray me like this. The phone vibrated in my hand. A text from Emily. "Mom, where are you? It's late and you haven't come back. I'm worried about you." Worried. The word made me physically nauseous. Worried about me, or worried that I had discovered her theft. I put the phone away without answering. I couldn't talk to her now. I couldn't pretend everything was fine when every cell in my body was screaming betrayal. I forced myself to get up from the bench. My legs felt weak, as if I were 100 years old instead of 67. I walked aimlessly for what felt like hours, though it was probably only minutes. The streets of our neighborhood, which had always seemed cozy and familiar, now felt strange, as if I were seeing everything for the first time. I passed the Morales house, where Emily had played with their children so many times when she was little. I passed the bakery where I bought pastries every Sunday for our family breakfast. Every corner, every shop, every tree reminded me of a life that I now understood had been a lie. The memories began to come, unstoppable. Memories that were once sweet and now felt bitter, poisoned by the truth I had just discovered. I remembered when Emily was 18 and wanted to study graphic design at a private university. The tuition cost $20,000 a year. Robert, my husband, had just died of a heart attack barely 6 months earlier. The life insurance had covered the funeral and the medical debts, but there wasn't much left. "Don't worry, Mom," Emily had told me then, hugging me while I cried in the kitchen looking at the bills. "I can go to a state school. I don't need that expensive college." But I saw the pain in her eyes. I saw her dreams crumbling, and I couldn't stand it. I took a second job cleaning offices at night. From 6 in the evening until 11 at night, after my 8-hour shifts at the hospital, I slept 4 hours each night. My hands cracked from the cleaning chemicals. I developed back problems that still bother me, but I paid every cent of that college, all 4 years. $80,000 in total. When Emily graduated, she cried in my arms. "Thank you, Mom. I'll never forget what you did for me. I'm going to pay you back for everything, I promise. When I get a good job, I'm going to give you the best life." She never paid me back a single dollar, and I never asked her for it. Because for me, seeing her happy was payment enough. 3 years later, she met Mark. They started dating, and in 6 months, they were talking about getting married. They came to visit me one Sunday afternoon. I had prepared my special pot roast, the one that took 2 days to make but that Emily had loved since she was a girl. "Mom, we found the perfect house," Emily told me, her eyes shining with excitement. "It's small but beautiful. It has a yard, and it's in a good neighborhood. The only problem is we need the down payment. It's $30,000 and we don't have enough." Mark had added, "We've been saving, but we only have $15,000. If we don't make the down payment this week, we'll lose the opportunity. Another couple wants it too. I had $45,000 saved at the time. It was my emergency fund, my safety net, the money that would give me peace in my old age. But when I saw the hope in my daughter's eyes, when I saw how Mark held her hand and looked at her with love, I didn't hesitate. "I'll lend you the $30,000, I told them. "You can pay me back when you can. There's no hurry." Emily jumped from her chair and hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "You're the best mom in the world. We'll pay you back, I promise, with interest." That was 12 years ago. They never paid me back that money. When I occasionally mentioned it, there was always an excuse. The house expenses, the car repairs, the credit card debts. And I always understood. I always forgave. Because that's what mothers do, right? Because money doesn't matter when it comes to your daughter's happiness. What a fool I was. 2 years ago, when I had problems with my knee and needed surgery, Emily offered to have me come live with them during my recovery. "You can't be alone, Mom. You need someone to take care of you. Besides, this way you'll save money by selling your condo and coming to live with us permanently. We have the extra room upstairs. It will be perfect." I hesitated. I had lived alone since Robert's death and had learned to enjoy my independence. But Emily insisted so much, with such apparent affection, that I finally agreed. I sold my small condo for $52,000. It was a modest place, but it was mine, paid in full, my refuge. "Keep that money in the bank, Mom," Emily had advised me. "It's your security. You never know when you might need it." Now I understood why she had given me that advice. Because she knew exactly where that money was and was planning how to steal it. I stopped in front of a closed store window. My reflection looked back at me, a 67-year-old woman with gray hair pulled back in a bun, wrinkles around her eyes, her shoulders slumped from the weight of a life of hard work. I looked exactly like what I was, old, tired, used. Was this how Emily saw me? As something old and worn out that was no longer useful, except as a source of money? The phone vibrated again. Another text from Emily. "Mom, it's almost 9 o'clock at night. Please tell me where you are. Mark is going to go out and look for you." The hypocrisy of that message enraged me. Mark, the same man who just hours ago was laughing as my daughter told him how she had robbed me. The same man who encouraged her, who celebrated my destruction as if it were an achievement worthy of pride. Another memory came, this one more recent. 3 months ago, Mark lost his job. He worked in construction, and the company closed without warning. For 2 months, he had no income. I used my pension to buy all the groceries for the house. I paid the electricity and water bills. I even gave them money for gas when Mark had job interviews. "Don't worry about paying it back, Mom," Emily had told me. "You're part of the family. This is what families do. They support each other." Now Mark had a new job. A good job that paid well. And instead of thanking me, instead of paying me back even a little of what I spent on them, they decided to steal everything I had left. I found myself in front of a church without realizing it. Street. Anthony's church, where I had baptized Emily, where I had prayed so many times for her well-being, for her happiness, for her success. The door was open, and a soft light streamed from inside. I went in without thinking. The church was almost empty. Only an elderly woman was praying in the front pew, her head bent over a rosary. I sat in the last pew, far from everyone, and for the first time since I heard that terrible conversation, I let the sobs come out completely. I cried for the daughter I thought I had, who never existed. I cried for all the years of sacrifice that meant nothing. I cried for my naivety, for my stupidity, for believing that a mother's love would always be returned. But after the tears came something else. Rage. A cold, clear rage filled me from head to toe. It wasn't the hot, uncontrollable rage that makes you scream and break things. It was an icy, calculated rage that made me think with a clarity I hadn't had in years. Emily made a mistake. A serious mistake. She bragged about her betrayal out loud, not knowing I was listening. She gave me the gift of the truth before it was too late to do anything about it, and I was going to use that gift. I left the church with a clear purpose in my mind. I was no longer the broken woman who had entered 30 minutes earlier. The crying had washed away my confusion, and what remained was pure determination. Emily and Mark thought I was a naive old woman who would never discover their betrayal. They were going to learn they were very wrong. I walked 3 blocks to a small coffee shop that was still open. I went in, ordered a hot tea, and sat at a table in the back. I needed to think, to make a plan, but first, I needed information. I took out my phone and searched the internet. What to do when a family member steals your money? The results were overwhelming. Dozens of articles, forums, legal pages. I started to read carefully, making mental notes of every important detail. Elder financial abuse, embezzlement, fraud, all those words appeared over and over. I discovered that what Emily had done wasn't just morally reprehensible, it was a crime. A serious crime. The fact that she had authorized access to my accounts didn't give her the right to empty them without my explicit consent. The fact that she had sold my jewelry without my permission was theft, plain and simple. But I also read something that chilled my blood. Many cases of family financial abuse never make it to court because the victims are afraid to report their own children, because the family pressures them to forgive and forget, because society makes them feel like they are bad mothers for defending their rights. Not me. Not this time. I searched Google. Elder financial abuse lawyers near me. Several names appeared. One caught my eye. Paul Torres, attorney specializing in financial abuse cases and protection of seniors' rights. His office was only 2 miles from where I was. I looked at the clock. It was 9:40 in the evening. Obviously, I couldn't call him now, but I saved his number in my phone. Tomorrow, first thing, I would contact him. The phone vibrated again. This time it was a call, not a text. Emily. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. She immediately called again. And again. And again. 5 missed calls. Finally, I answered. I had to, or I would raise suspicion. But when I spoke, I kept my voice calm, controlled. Hello? Mom, where are you? We're so worried. Mark was just about to go out and look for you. Did something happen to you? The concern in her voice sounded so real, so genuine. If I hadn't heard that conversation in the kitchen, I would have believed every word. Now I only heard the lie behind every syllable. I'm fine, honey. I went for a walk and lost track of time. I'm on my way home now. But Mom, it's almost 10 o'clock at night. Where are you exactly? I'll come get you. That's not necessary. I'm close. I'll be there in 15 minutes. You left the grocery bag spilled in the hallway. The milk went everywhere. We thought something terrible happened to you. Of course they thought that. They probably panicked, thinking I had heard them, that I had discovered everything. They slipped when I came in. My back suddenly hurt a lot, and I had to go for a walk to ease it. Sorry for the mess. Don't worry about that, Mom. The important thing is that you're okay. Do you want me to heat up some dinner for when you get here? I'm not hungry. I just want to sleep. Okay, I'll wait up for you. I hung up before she could say anything else. My hands were shaking, but not from fear or sadness. They were shaking with suppressed rage. The ease with which Emily lied, the softness of her voice, the fake concern, it was all an act. It had all always been an act. I stayed in the coffee shop for another 20 minutes, finishing my tea, organizing my thoughts. I needed a specific plan. I couldn't just get home and confront them. That would only put them on alert, and they would probably move the money to accounts where I couldn't trace it. I took a napkin and a pen I borrowed from the waitress. I started writing a list of everything I needed to do. 1. Get all my important documents. Bank statements, deeds, IDs, health insurance cards, everything I might need. 2. Make copies of everything before Emily knew I suspected anything. 3. Contact the lawyer tomorrow. 4. Gather evidence of the unauthorized transfers. 5. Find out which jewelry store she sold my jewelry at. Maybe I could still get it back. 6. Show no emotion. Act normal. Give them enough rope to hang themselves. I put the napkin in my pocket and left the coffee shop. The cold night air cleared my mind even more. I walked slowly toward the house, mentally preparing myself for the performance of a lifetime. I had to be convincing. I had to make them believe I knew nothing. When I reached the front walk, I saw the living room lights on. Through the window, I could see Emily pacing back and forth, phone in hand. Mark was sitting on the couch watching television, seemingly unconcerned. I took 3 deep breaths before opening the door. "Mom!" Emily ran to me as soon as I entered. She hugged me tightly, and I had to use all my willpower not to push her away. "You had me so worried. How is your back?" "Better. The walk helped. You should go to the doctor. Those pains aren't normal. It's just age, honey. It's nothing." Mark got up from the couch and came toward us. "Eleanor, you gave us quite a scare. We thought something serious had happened to you." I looked him directly in the eyes. Those eyes that just hours ago were shining with greed as he plotted to rob me. Now they were feigning concern. "I'm fine, Mark. Thank you for worrying." "I cleaned up the mess in the hallway," Emily said, taking my arm and guiding me to the couch. "Sit down. I brought you your slippers." She helped me sit as if I were an invalid. She took off my shoes and put my slippers on for me with a gentleness that would have been touching if I didn't know the truth. "It was all theater, all manipulation. Are you sure you don't want something for dinner? There's leftover chicken. The same chicken they were eating while planning my ruin." "No, thank you. I just want to go up to my room. I'll walk you up." "I can go by myself, Emily, but with your back." I said I can go by myself. My tone was harsher than I intended. I saw Emily and Mark exchange a quick glance, a look that clearly said, "Did she hear something?" I softened my expression immediately. "I'm sorry, honey. I'm just really tired, and the pain makes me irritable." "Don't worry, Mom. I understand. Get some rest." I went up the stairs slowly, aware that they were both watching me. I could feel their eyes on my back, evaluating, suspecting. I had to be very careful. One wrong move, and I would destroy my chance to get back what was mine. I got to my room and locked the door. It was a small room on the 2nd floor, with a single bed, an old wardrobe, and a dresser. The walls were bare because Emily never let me hang my photos, saying it would make unnecessary holes in the wall. I sat on the bed and took out my phone. I logged into my bank account again, and this time I took screenshots of everything. Every transaction, every transfer, every movement from the last 6 months. I saved them in a hidden folder on my phone and emailed them to my own address, just in case. Then I opened my nightstand drawer. I kept some important documents there. My birth certificate, my social security card, the deed to my old condo. I checked that everything was there. Tomorrow I would make copies of everything at the library. There was something else in that drawer. A small notebook where I had noted down every dollar I had lent Emily over the years. I didn't do it to collect it someday. I just did it to keep a record. Now that notebook had become evidence. I opened it and read the entries. March 15th, 2015, $500 to repair her car. July 3rd, 2016, $1,200 to pay her credit card. November 20th, 2017, $800 to buy Christmas presents. January 10th, 2019, $30,000 for the down payment on the house, page after page of loans that were never repaid. In total, they added up to more than $85,000 over the years. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. I had slept little, maybe 3 hours in total, but my mind was clearer than ever. I dressed in silence, choosing comfortable and practical clothes. I took my purse and put all the important documents I had reviewed the night before inside. It was 6 o'clock in the morning when I went downstairs. The house was silent. Emily and Mark were still asleep. Perfect. I wrote a quick note in the kitchen, went out for an early walk and to run some errands. Back around noon, I left it on the table where they would surely see it. I left the house with my heart pounding in my chest. It wasn't fear I felt. It was determination. It was the first day of my counterattack. And with every step I took, I felt stronger, more certain of what I had to do. I walked 2 blocks to the bus stop. The cold morning air cleared my head completely. I took the bus that went downtown. During the ride, I mentally reviewed everything I needed to do. My first stop was the public library. I arrived just as they opened the doors at 7:30. I went straight to the photocopiers and made copies of all my documents, 3 copies of each. One for me, one for the lawyer, and one for backup. I spent $12 on copies, but it was worth every penny. I put everything in a new folder I bought at the small library shop. Then I sat down at one of the public computers and started researching Paul Torres, the lawyer I had found last night, more thoroughly. His website was professional and detailed. He had over 20 years of experience in family law and financial abuse cases. He had won multiple cases similar to mine. His clients' testimonials spoke of a dedicated, honest, and effective man. His initial consultation fee was $50, which would be applied to the total cost if I decided to hire him. I picked up the library phone and called his office. A receptionist with a kind voice answered on the second ring. Law Office of Paul Torres. Good morning. Good morning. I need to make an urgent appointment with Mr. Torres. It's a case of family financial abuse. Of course, ma'am. Could you give me your name? Eleanor. Eleanor Miller. I'll use Eleanor's married name, assuming Robert's last name was Miller. Self-correction. The script says Lourdes Chavez and Selena Chavez Ruiz. The narrator's name is Lourdes Chavez. I changed it to Eleanor. Let's make her Eleanor Reeves. Robert Reeves. Emily Reeves. Mark, no last name given. Paul Torres. Mr. Martinez. Okay, let's restart that part. Eleanor Reeves. One moment, Mrs. Reeves. Let me check the attorney's schedule. I waited, holding my breath. I needed to see him soon, before Emily suspected anything. Mrs. Reeves, Mr. Torres had a cancellation this morning. Could you come in at 10? I looked at the clock. It was 8:15. I had enough time. Yes, I'll be there. Perfect. The address is 847 Main Street, 3rd floor, Suite 302. Please arrive 15 minutes early to fill out some forms. I'll be there. Thank you. I hung up and sat there for a moment, processing what I had just done. I had taken the first real step. There was no turning back now. I left the library and walked downtown. I had almost 2 hours before the appointment. I needed to get some breakfast, but more importantly, I needed to find the jewelry store where Emily had sold my jewelry. I remembered in the conversation I overheard, Emily had said the jewelry store downtown. There were at least 5 jewelry stores in this area. I would have to visit them all until I found the right one. I went into a small coffee shop and ordered a coffee and a donut. While I ate, I took out my phone and looked through my photo gallery. I had some old photos where I was wearing my jewelry. Robert's engagement ring, the pearl earrings, my mother's gold bracelet. I took screenshots of those photos to show at the jewelry stores. I finished my breakfast and began my search. The first jewelry store was elegant, with display cases full of expensive pieces. I went in, and a young saleswoman greeted me with a professional smile. Good morning. How can I help you? Good morning. I'm looking for some jewelry that was stolen from me a few days ago. I was told it might have been sold here. The saleswoman's smile faded. I'm very sorry to hear that, ma'am, but we don't buy used jewelry. We sell new pieces. I understand. Thank you. The second jewelry store didn't buy used pieces either, nor the third. I was starting to worry when I entered the fourth jewelry store, a smaller, more modest one than the others. An older man, perhaps in his 70s, was behind the counter polishing a ring. Good morning, I greeted him. Good morning, ma'am. Looking for something in particular? I'm here to ask about some jewelry. I think someone might have sold it here a few days ago. I showed him the photos on my phone. This white gold ring with a diamond, these pearl earrings, and this gold bracelet. The man took his glasses from the table and put them on to see the photos better. He frowned thoughtfully. These pieces look familiar. Wait a moment. He went to a small office in the back and returned with a ledger. He opened it and flipped through several pages. Here it is. 4 days ago, a young woman sold a white gold diamond engagement ring, a pair of pearl earrings, and a gold bracelet. The descriptions match your photos. My heart skipped a beat. I'd found them. Do you still have them? The man shook his head sadly. I'm sorry, ma'am. I've already sold them. The ring and earrings were sold 2 days ago. I still have the bracelet, but it's already on hold. A client is coming for it tomorrow. I felt my legs tremble. That jewelry is mine. It was stolen from me. Do you have any proof of ownership? Sales receipts? Dated photos? Any documents? I have these photos of me wearing them. The ring was given to me by my husband over 40 years ago. The earrings were a gift when my daughter was born. The bracelet belonged to my mother. The man looked at me with genuine compassion. Ma'am, I understand your situation, but I bought these pieces in good faith. The woman who sold them had an official ID. She signed all the necessary paperwork. There was no indication they were stolen. My daughter sold them without my permission. Can you tell me how much you paid her for them? The man hesitated, but finally consulted his book. I gave her $15,000 in total. The ring was worth more, but it had some scratches. The earrings were in excellent condition. The bracelet is 14-karat gold, good weight, $15,000. My most precious treasures, the only physical things that connected me to Robert and my mother, sold for $15,000. Do you remember the name of the woman who sold them? Of course. Emily Reeves. There it was. Concrete evidence. A witness who could confirm that Emily had sold my jewelry. I need a copy of that record, I told him. And I need your contact information. I'm going to take legal action. The man nodded. I understand. Let me make copies of everything. He handed me his card. My name is Octavio Martinez. I've been in this business for 40 years. If you need me to testify, I will. I don't like being involved in family theft, even unknowingly. Thank you, Mr. Martinez. You don't know how much this means to me. He gave me copies of the transaction, including the copy of Emily's driver's license that she had shown when selling the jewelry. He also gave me photos he had taken of the pieces before selling them, part of his standard procedure. About the bracelet I still have, Mr. Martinez said carefully. Legally, it's already the property of the client who put it on hold. But let me talk to him. If I explain the situation, maybe he'll agree to return it. I can't promise anything. I would be infinitely grateful. I left the jewelry store, my folder now thicker with the copies of the sales record. Every piece of evidence I gathered made my case stronger. Emily had left a perfect paper trail of her betrayal. It was 9:40. I had just enough time to get to Mr. Torres's office. I took a taxi. I didn't want to risk being late. The building where his office was located was modern, all glass and steel. I went up to the 3rd floor in the elevator, my hands clutching the folder with all my evidence. I found suite 302 and went in. The waiting room was small but welcoming. There were 4 chairs, a table with magazines, and a window overlooking the street. The receptionist, a woman in her 40s with a warm smile, greeted me. Mrs. Reeves? Yes. Perfect. You're right on time. Please fill out these forms while Mr. Torres finishes with his previous client. She handed me a clipboard with several forms: personal information, summary of the case, authorization for legal representation. I filled them out with a shaky but determined hand. I had barely finished when an inner door opened and an older man walked out with a younger woman, probably his daughter. They both looked relieved, and the woman's eyes were red as if she had been crying. Thank you, counselor, the man said, shaking the hand of another man who had come out with them. I don't know what we would have done without your help. That's what I'm here for, Mr. Ramon. And remember, don't let anyone else have access to your accounts. Not even family. When the couple left, the man turned to me. It was Paul Torres. He was about 55, with neatly cut gray hair, a dark suit but no tie. His eyes were kind but alert, the kind of eyes that didn't miss a single detail. Mrs. Reeves? I'm Paul Torres. Please, come in. Mr. Torres's office was spacious and impeccably organized. Law books filled dark wood shelves that covered an entire wall. His desk was large but not ostentatious, with a modern computer and neat stacks of folders. He motioned for me to sit in one of the comfortable chairs in front of his desk while he took his seat. "Tell me what brings you here, Mrs. Reeves," he said in a calm but focused voice. "On the phone you mentioned family financial abuse." I took a deep breath. It was the first time I was going to tell someone the whole story. I felt a lump in my throat, but forced myself to speak clearly. My daughter emptied my bank accounts without my permission and sold my personal jewelry. She took more than $55,000 in total. And I found out because I overheard her bragging about it to her husband. Paul Torres nodded, his expression remaining professional, but I could see a flash of indignation in his eyes. He had seen cases like mine before. "Does your daughter have legal access to your accounts?" 6 months ago, she had me sign some papers so she could manage my finances in case of an emergency. She told me it was because of my age, that it was a necessary precaution. I signed without reading carefully because I trusted her. "Do you remember what kind of documents you signed, exactly?" "I think it was something about a power of attorney for my bank accounts." She explained it would only be for emergencies, so she could pay my medical bills if I was in the hospital or something. Paul Torres picked up a legal pad and started writing notes. "Did you ever give her verbal or written permission to make large transfers or sell your belongings?" "Never. I never authorized any of that." "Do you have evidence of the unauthorized transfers?" I opened my folder and took out the screenshots I had printed at the library that morning. "Here are all the movements from the last 6 months. You can see how my account went from having almost $40,000 to less than $1,000. The lawyer reviewed the documents carefully, his eyes moving quickly from one line to the next. He whistled softly when he saw the amounts. "These are very large transfers, all going to the same account, I assume your daughter's." "That's right. And that's not all. I took out the documents Mr. Martinez had given me. Here is the proof that she sold my jewelry. The owner of the jewelry store gave me copies of everything, including my daughter's ID. Paul Torres reviewed those documents as well, taking more notes. When he finished, he leaned back in his chair and looked at me directly. "Mrs. Reeves, what your daughter did constitutes several crimes: elder financial abuse, embezzlement, and possibly fraud. The fact that she had authorized access to your accounts did not give her the right to empty them for personal use. That access was for emergencies related to your care, not for personal enrichment. So I can get my money back? I can almost guarantee it. The evidence you have is very strong. But I need you to understand something important. This is going to destroy your relationship with your daughter. Once we initiate legal action, there's no turning back. This will go to court. There could be criminal charges, in addition to the civil ones. I understand. Are you sure? Many mothers come in here furious, but when I explain the consequences, they change their minds. The legal system can be brutal on family ties." I sat up straight in my chair, looking him directly in the eye. "Mr. Torres, yesterday I heard my daughter laugh while she told her husband how she stole everything from me. They said I was a naive old woman. They were planning to use my money to go on vacation and buy a new car while I was left with nothing. My relationship with my daughter is already destroyed. She destroyed it when she decided my love and trust were worthless." Paul Torres nodded slowly, respect in his gaze. "I understand. In that case, we are going to get back what is yours. But I have to warn you, this process can take time. Weeks, maybe months. What should I do? First, we are going to freeze all your shared accounts immediately. That will prevent your daughter from taking any more money. Second, we are going to file a civil lawsuit to recover the stolen funds. Third, I'm going to contact the district attorney's office to see if they want to pursue criminal charges." "Criminal charges? My daughter could go to jail?" "It's a possibility, yes. It will depend on the prosecutor and how strong they view the case. But, Mrs. Reeves, she committed a crime, a serious crime. The idea of Emily in jail brought mixed feelings. She was my daughter, the little girl I had raised, fed, loved. But she was also the woman who had betrayed me in the vilest way possible. Do what you have to do, I said finally. I want justice. Perfect. My fee is $200 an hour, but for cases like yours, where there is clear evidence of abuse, I work with a maximum cap. You would not pay more than $5,000 in total, no matter how long the case takes. And when we recover your money, which we will, that cost will come out of the recovered funds. $5,000 was a lot of money, especially now that I had almost nothing. But if it meant recovering my $55,000, it was worth it. Do you need a retainer? Normally, yes. But in your situation, I understand cash is limited. We can arrange a payment plan. For now, I need $500 to start the process. I took out my wallet. I had $600 in cash, money I had kept in my purse for emergencies. I gave him $500. It was almost everything I had left in the world, but it was an investment in my justice. Paul Torres handed me a representation contract. I read it carefully this time. Every word, every clause. I wasn't going to make the same mistake twice. When I was satisfied, I signed. "Excellent," he said, placing the contract in a new folder with my name on it. "Now, I need you to tell me everything from the beginning. Every detail is important. When exactly did you sign the documents giving your daughter access?" We spent the next 2 hours going over my entire history. I told him about Robert's death, about working 2 jobs to pay for Emily's college, about the $30,000 I lent them for their house down payment, about selling my condo to move in with them. I showed him the notebook where I had written down all the loans over the years. Paul Torres listened attentively, taking notes constantly, asking specific questions. Did I have witnesses to any of those loans? Did I keep old receipts or bank transfers? Did anyone else know about the situation? "One more thing I need to know," he said finally. "The house where you live now with your daughter, whose name is it in?" "In Emily and her husband Mark's name. You contributed financially to the purchase of that house?" "I gave them $30,000 for the down payment 12 years ago. It was a loan, but they never paid me back." "Do you have proof of that loan?" I opened my notebook to the correct page. It's noted here. And there should be a record in my bank account from 12 years ago of a large transfer to Emily's account. We'll need those old bank records. Banks keep that information. This is important because if you can prove you contributed significantly to the purchase of the house, you might be entitled to a portion of the property's value. That hadn't occurred to me. "You mean I could get that $30,000 back?" "Possibly. Or you might be entitled to a percentage of the house. We would have to see what the house was worth when they bought it and what it's worth now. If it has increased in value, your investment also increased." For the first time in 2 days, I felt something like hope. Not only could I recover the money Emily had recently stolen, but also the money I had lent her years ago and never thought I'd see again. "What's next?" I asked. "I'm going to draft an emergency order to freeze all accounts where your daughter has access to your money. I'm also going to request a financial restraining order that prevents her from selling or transferring any assets until the case is resolved. I'll file all of this with a judge today. Hopefully, we'll have an answer in 24 hours. And will my daughter find out?" "Eventually, yes, when she tries to access the money and discovers the accounts are frozen. But by then, it will be too late. The money will be protected. What do I do in the meantime? I still live in her house." Paul Torres frowned thoughtfully. "That is a delicate situation. Legally, she can't kick you out of the house without a formal eviction process, which would take weeks, but it could get unpleasant once she finds out you've taken legal action. Do you have anywhere else you can stay temporarily?" I thought about my options. I didn't have many close friends. Most of the people my age I used to socialize with had passed away or moved. My only family was Emily. "Not really." "Then I suggest you act normal for now. Don't let them suspect you know anything. Stay calm. In a few days, when we have the judge's orders, things are going to blow up anyway. But in the meantime, protect yourself. Keep your important documents in a safe place outside of that house." I left Mr. Torres's office around noon with a mixture of relief and anxiety. For the first time in 2 days, I felt I had some control over my situation. I wasn't alone in this anymore. I had a competent lawyer on my side and a clear plan of action. But now came the hardest part, going back to that house and acting as if nothing had happened, pretending I was still the naive, trusting mother Emily thought I was. Keeping the mask on until the legal pieces were in place, I took the bus back, keeping all the documents in my purse. Paul Torres had given me copies of everything we discussed and made me promise to keep them in a safe place. I decided I would leave them in a safe deposit box at the bank the next day. When I got to the house, it was almost 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Emily was in the living room, watching television. She got up immediately when she saw me come in. "Mom, where were you all morning? Your note said you'd be back by noon. I went for a walk and then stopped by the bank to check on a few things. You know, old people stuff." I tried to sound casual, even bored. "The bank? What for?" There was something in her tone, a barely perceptible tension. Was she worried I had discovered the empty accounts? "Just to update my information. They asked me to come in and sign some papers." The lie slipped easily from my lips. I was learning to lie as well as she did. "Oh, okay. Have you had lunch?" "No, not yet. I made you some chicken soup. Your favorite. Let me heat up a bowl for you." She followed me into the kitchen. I could feel her eyes watching me as I sat at the table. She was evaluating me, looking for signs that something had changed. I had to be very careful. "Thank you, honey," I said when she placed the hot bowl in front of me. The soup smelled good, but every spoonful tasted like ashes. How could I eat food prepared by someone who had betrayed me so completely? "Mom, you acted a little strange yesterday," Emily said, sitting across from me. "When you came back from your walk, you were different. Are you sure you're okay?" "I was just tired, and my back hurt." "I already told you, it's just. I worry about you. You're 67 years old. At your age, anything can happen. At my age." As if I were a decrepit old woman incapable of taking care of herself. That was exactly how she saw me. "I'm perfectly fine, Emily. Stop worrying so much. It's my job to worry. You're my mother." The way she said it, with that sweet voice loaded with false devotion, turned my stomach. Mark came into the kitchen just then, still in his pajamas even though it was 1 in the afternoon. He worked night shifts as a supervisor at a factory, so his hours were irregular. "Eleanor, good morning," he greeted me, pouring himself some coffee. "How are you this morning?" "Fine, Mark. Thank you for asking." I kept my tone neutral, polite. I couldn't let either of them suspect I knew the truth. "Honey, don't forget we have that dinner with the Mendozas tonight," Emily said to Mark. "The one we've been planning for months." "The Mendozas? Who are they?" Mark asked, confused. "You know Robert and his wife, the ones who just got back from Europe." Emily shot him a significant look that he finally seemed to understand. "Oh, right, of course. The Mendozas." They were lying. There was no dinner. They were probably going to spend more of my money at some expensive restaurant, celebrating their successful theft. Rage bubbled in my chest, but I pushed it down, keeping it hidden. "Mom, you'll be okay on your own tonight, right? We'll be back late." "Of course. I'm not a child, Emily. I can take care of myself for a few hours. I know, it's just. I like to make sure." I finished my soup in silence while they talked about their fake plans for the night. Every word that came out of their mouths was a lie wrapped in another lie. I wondered how many times before they had lied to me, and I simply hadn't noticed. After lunch, I went up to my room with the excuse that I wanted to rest. In reality, I needed to get away from them before I lost control and said something that would ruin everything. I locked the door and sat on the bed, breathing deeply. My phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. "Mrs. Reeves, this is Paul Torres. The motions have been filed with the judge. I expect to have news by tomorrow morning. Stay strong," I replied quickly. "Thank you, Mr. Torres. I will do my best." I spent the rest of the afternoon in my room, organizing my thoughts. I reviewed every document I had, memorizing details, mentally preparing for what was to come. I knew that at some point, probably soon, this would all blow up. Emily and Mark would find out the accounts were frozen. They would realize I knew, and then things would get ugly. I needed to be ready for that moment. Around 6 in the evening, I heard movement downstairs. Emily and Mark were getting ready for their supposed dinner. I went downstairs carefully, finding them in the living room. Emily was wearing a new dress I hadn't seen before, probably bought with my money. Mark was in a suit, something he rarely wore. "Mom, we're leaving now," Emily said, checking her makeup in a small mirror. "There's food in the fridge if you get hungry later. Don't wait up, we'll probably be back after midnight." "Have fun," I said mechanically. I watched them walk out the door, heard the car engine start, and drive away. Only then did I let my mask fall. I collapsed onto the couch, exhausted from the effort of acting normal. The house was silent. A heavy, oppressive silence. I looked around the living room, really seeing it for the first time in months. The furniture I helped buy, the big screen TV I gave them last Christmas, the curtains I sewed with my own hands. Everything in this house had my mark, my money, my effort, and they had decided I deserved none of it. I got up and started walking through the house. I went into the kitchen where I had prepared hundreds of meals for this family. I went upstairs and passed the master bedroom, Emily and Mark's room. The door was slightly ajar. I know I shouldn't have. I know I should have respected their privacy. But something pushed me to go in. I turned on the light and looked around. The room was large, much larger than my tiny room on the second floor. They had a king-size bed, a flat-screen TV on the wall, a huge walk-in closet. On the dresser, something caught my eye. A glossy brochure. I picked it up and opened it. It was a brochure for a resort in Cancun. There were prices circled in red. A presidential suite for 1 week, $8,000. So it was true. They were going to use my money for a luxurious vacation. Probably the trip Emily mentioned in that conversation I overheard. I kept looking. I don't know exactly what I expected to find. In the top drawer of Mark's dresser, I found a thick envelope. I opened it, and inside were papers from a car dealership. A quote for a new Toyota Camry, model of the year. Price, $32,000. They had circled the financing plan. My money. It was all my money they were planning to spend. I found something else in that drawer. A small, black velvet box. I opened it, and my heart almost stopped. Inside was my mother's gold bracelet. The bracelet Emily had supposedly sold at the jewelry store. I picked it up with trembling hands. Why did he have it here? Mr. Martinez had told me the bracelet was on hold, that a client was coming for it tomorrow. But here it was, in Mark's drawer. Then I understood. Emily didn't sell the bracelet to a stranger. She sold it to Mark. He was the client who had put it on hold. He was probably planning to give it back to Emily as an anniversary or birthday present, using my own money to buy my own stolen jewelry. The cruelty of it took my breath away. Not only had they robbed me, but they were playing games with my most precious belongings as if they were toys. I put the bracelet in my pocket. It wasn't exactly legal to take something from their room, but that bracelet was mine. It had belonged to my mother. She had given it to me on her deathbed, and I was not going to let Emily and Mark use it in their perverse games. I left the room and went downstairs. I needed to get out of this house before I went crazy. I grabbed my jacket and my purse and went for a walk. The neighborhood streets were quiet on this Wednesday night. Families were eating dinner in their homes, warm lights glowing in the windows. Normal lives, normal families where children didn't steal from their mothers. I walked aimlessly for over an hour. When I finally returned to the house, I felt calmer, but also more determined. I went up to my room, put the bracelet in my purse along with all my important documents, and lay down on the bed without changing. I woke up early the next day, before dawn. I had slept poorly, with fragmented dreams full of confrontations and screams. But when I opened my eyes, my mind was clear. Today would be an important day. Paul Torres had said he expected to have news from the judge this morning. I showered and dressed with care, choosing comfortable but presentable clothes. I didn't know what this day would bring, but I wanted to be prepared for anything. I went down to the kitchen and made coffee, the aroma filling the silent house. It was 7 o'clock in the morning when my phone rang. Paul Torres. Good morning, Mrs. Reeves. I have good news. The judge approved all our motions. The accounts where your daughter has access are frozen as of 6 o'clock this morning. We also have a financial restraining order preventing the sale or transfer of any assets until the case is resolved. I felt a huge weight lift from my shoulders. What does that mean, exactly? It means your daughter cannot take 1 more cent from your accounts. If she tries to make a transfer or use the cards, it will be declined. It also means they cannot sell the house or any other major asset without the court's permission. And what happens now? Now comes the hard part. We need to serve them formally with the lawsuit. A process server will be coming to the house today to deliver the documents. Will you be there? My heart started to beat faster. It has to be today? It's better to do it quickly. The more time that passes, the more opportunity they have to hide assets or create more problems. The server will arrive between 10 and 12 o'clock this morning. I looked at the clock. It was 7:15. I had less than 3 hours before my life exploded completely. I'll be here, I said, my voice firmer than I felt. Mrs. Reeves, when this happens, your daughter and son-in-law are going to be furious. They will probably confront you, accuse you, try to make you feel guilty. I need you to stand firm. Do not let yourself be manipulated. You did nothing wrong. You are defending what is rightfully yours. I understand. If at any point you feel you are in physical danger, call the police immediately. I hope it doesn't come to that, but it's better to be prepared. We hung up, and I sat in the kitchen, holding my coffee cup with both hands to stop them from shaking. This was real. It was really happening. In a few hours, Emily and Mark would know I had discovered them, that I had taken action, that I was not the foolish old woman they thought I was. I heard movement upstairs. Emily was waking up. A few minutes later, she came downstairs, still in her pajamas, yawning. "Good morning, Mom. You're up early. I couldn't sleep." "Coffee?" she asked, pouring herself a cup. "It's already made." She sat across from me at the kitchen table. She looked tired. They had probably gotten home late from their dinner. I wondered what they had spent my money on last night. An expensive restaurant? A bar? More new clothes? "Mom, I need to talk to you about something," Emily said after taking a sip of coffee. My stomach tensed. "About what?" "It's about your finances. I've been reviewing your accounts, and I'm worried. You spend a lot of money without planning properly. I think we should set up a stricter budget." The hypocrisy of those words was so overwhelming, I almost laughed in her face. She, who had emptied my accounts, was sitting there telling me I spent too much. "What kind of budget?" I managed to ask in a neutral voice. "Well, maybe you should give me your debit card, and I'll give you a fixed amount each week for your expenses. That way, you won't be tempted to buy unnecessary things." She wanted to take my card. She wanted to completely control every cent I had left. The level of her greed was boundless. "I'll think about it," I said, because I couldn't say what I was really thinking without ruining everything. "It's not something to think about, Mom. It's for your own good. At your age, it's easy to get confused with money. I just want to take care of you." I said, "I'll think about it, Emily." This time my tone was harder. I couldn't help it. Emily frowned but didn't press further. She finished her coffee in silence, and then went upstairs to get dressed. Mark came down half an hour later, already ready for work. His shift started at 9. "See you tonight, Eleanor," he said on his way to the door. "Goodbye, Mark." When he left, it was just Emily and me in the house. She was upstairs in her room, probably scrolling through social media or watching TV. I stayed in the living room, waiting. The clock ticked by with painful slowness. 9:30. 9:45. 10 o'clock. At 10:20, a car parked in front of the house. I looked out the window and saw a man in a suit get out, carrying a thick folder. The process server. My heart began to hammer in my chest. This was it. There was no going back now. The doorbell rang. Once, twice. "Mom, can you get that? I'm busy," Emily shouted from upstairs. I got up from the couch on shaky legs and walked to the door. I took a deep breath and opened it. "Mrs. Eleanor Reeves?" the server asked. "Yes, that's me. I have legal documents that must be served to a Miss Emily Reeves. Is she home?" "Yes, she's upstairs." "One moment." "Who is it, Mom?" Emily was coming down the stairs at that moment. She stopped halfway when she saw the uniformed officer at the door. "What's going on?" The server stepped forward. "Are you Emily Reeves?" "Yes." "Why?" "I have a legal notice for you." He handed her a thick envelope. "You are being sued for embezzlement and financial abuse. All details are in these documents. There is also a court order freezing all bank accounts on which you are an authorized user for Mrs. Eleanor Reeves, effective immediately." Emily took the envelope with trembling hands, her face losing all its color. "What? I don't understand." "This has to be a mistake." "There's no mistake, ma'am. I also need you to sign here confirming you received the documents." Emily signed mechanically, still in shock. The server handed me a copy of the same documents. He gave me a brief, professional nod and left. Emily stood in the middle of the living room, holding the envelope as if it were a bomb about to explode. Slowly, she lifted her gaze to me. Her eyes, once full of false affection, now burned with something dark and dangerous. "You did this." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Yes." "You're suing me? Me? Your own daughter?" "I'm taking back what you stole from me." The transformation on her face was instant. The mask of the loving daughter fell away completely, revealing the real person underneath. And that person was filled with rage. "Steal from you? I didn't steal anything. I had authorization to manage your accounts. You signed the papers. I signed papers for you to manage my finances in case of a medical emergency, not for you to empty my accounts and take $55,000 to spend on vacations and new cars. How did you know about that?" And there it was. The confirmation of her guilt in that simple question. "I heard you, Emily. 3 days ago, when I came home early from the grocery store, I heard you bragging to Mark about how you took all my money and sold my jewelry. I heard you laughing at me, calling me a naive old woman." Emily's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her face went from rage to panic in seconds. I can explain. There's nothing to explain. I heard everything, every word. And then I went to a lawyer, and now I'm going to get back every cent you stole from me. You can't do this to me. I'm your daughter." "Exactly. You are my daughter. The person I trusted most in this world. And you betrayed me in the worst way possible." Emily began to read the documents with trembling hands. With every page she turned, her face grew paler. When she finished, she looked at me with eyes full of tears, but they didn't move me anymore. I knew they were tears of panic, not remorse. "Mom, please, we can fix this between us. You don't need to involve lawyers and judges. I'll pay you back the money, I promise. Just give me time. You've promised me a lot of things over the years, Emily. You promised to pay me back the $30,000 for the down payment on this house. You never did. Now you promise to pay back the money you stole. Why should I believe you? Because I'm your daughter. Your only daughter. A daughter who sees me as a source of money. Nothing more." Emily dropped the legal documents onto the living room table. Her hands were shaking so much she could barely hold them. She collapsed onto the couch, putting her face in her hands. For a moment I thought she was going to cry. But when she pulled her hands away, what I saw in her eyes wasn't sadness. It was calculation. "You know what?" she said, her voice suddenly cold. "You're right. I took the money. I sold your jewelry. And you know why? Because I deserve it. After everything I've had to put up with taking care of you, listening to your complaints, having to change my life because you can't live alone. No one asked you to take care of me. I was perfectly fine living alone in my condo until you insisted I come live here. Oh, please. You were lonely and sad in that miserable condo. We did you a favor by bringing you here. A favor? You did me a favor after I paid for your entire college education? After I gave you $30,000 for this house? After I sold my condo and gave you more money when you needed it? That was years ago. You can't hold it over my head that you were my mother. That's what mothers are supposed to do. The coldness of those words hit me like a bucket of ice water. This was how she really saw me. As if every sacrifice I had made for her was simply my obligation, something that deserved no recognition or gratitude. "You're right," I said slowly. "It is what mothers are supposed to do. But you know what daughters aren't supposed to do? Steal from their mothers, lie to them, manipulate them, laugh at them with their husbands. I wasn't laughing at you. I heard you, Emily. Every word. You said I was a naive old woman, that it was laughable how trusting I was, that I never checked my bank statements." Emily stood up, pacing the living room like a caged animal. Fine, I said those things, but I was upset. We'd had a bad day, and I was just venting. I didn't mean it. You were bragging about stealing $55,000 from me. Was that just venting too? We needed that money. Mark lost his job. We had debts. The house needs repairs. I didn't do it for fun. I did it out of necessity. Liar. I saw the brochure for the resort in Cancun in your room. I saw the papers for the new car. This wasn't about necessity. It was about greed. Emily stopped dead, realizing I had been in her room. You went into my room? You went through my things? I found this too. I pulled the gold bracelet from my pocket. My mother's bracelet, which you supposedly sold. It was in Mark's drawer. Were you planning to give it back to me? Was it going to be a birthday present bought with my own money? Emily's face turned red. Give that back. That's not yours. Not mine. It belonged to my mother. She gave it to me before she died. It's the only thing I had left of her. Of course it's mine. Mark bought it legally from the jewelry store. Technically, it's his now. You sold it without my permission. That sale is fraudulent. And this, I held up the bracelet, is staying with me. Emily grabbed her phone. I'm calling Mark. He'll know what to do about this. Call him. Tell him he's being sued, too. Because he knew everything. I heard him on that conversation. He's an accomplice to your theft. Emily dialed anyway. I could hear the phone ringing on speaker. Mark answered on the third ring. Honey, what's wrong? I'm at work. We have a problem. A huge problem. She sued us. A process server came and gave us papers. It says the accounts are frozen and she's suing us for theft. There was a long silence on the other end. Then Mark spoke, his voice tense. How did she find out? She heard us. When we were talking a few days ago, she heard everything. Oh my God. Emily, I told you to keep your voice down. I told you she could be listening. Don't blame me. You were right there with her, happily stuffing your face with her money. Don't argue. I interrupted. It doesn't matter how I found out. What matters is that now you're going to have to pay back every cent you stole from me. Eleanor, Mark's voice came from the phone, trying to sound reasonable. I think this has gotten out of hand for everyone. But we're family. We can resolve this without lawyers and judges. Why don't we talk tonight when I get home? There's nothing to talk about. My lawyer will handle everything. Please, be reasonable. If this goes to court, we're all going to suffer. The process is long and expensive. Nobody wins in these situations. I've already lost. I lost $55,000. I lost my mother's jewelry. I lost trust in my own daughter. I have nothing left to lose. And what about us? Emily spat, grabbing the phone back. Have you thought about us? This is our home. If they take money from us to pay you, we could lose the house. Is that what you want? To leave your own daughter on the street? This house was bought in part with my money. $30,000 I lent you, and you never paid back. My lawyer says I'm entitled to a portion of the property's value. That was a gift, not a loan. In my notebook, it clearly says it was a loan, and I have the bank records to prove it. Emily threw the phone onto the couch in frustration. She stormed around the living room like a whirlwind, pulling at her hair, her breathing rapid. When she finally stopped, she looked at me with an expression I had never seen on her face before. It was pure hatred. You know what, Mom? Do whatever you want. Sue us. Take us to court. But when this is all over, you never speak to me again. You are never going to be a part of my life again. Did you hear me? You're dead to me. Her words should have hurt. A week ago, they would have shattered me. But now, after knowing the truth about who my daughter really was, I only felt a cold emptiness. I was already dead to you, Emily. A long time ago. I just didn't know it until now. Get out of my house. Right now. This is my house too. I helped pay for it. I don't give a damn what you contributed. I want you to leave. Pack your things and go. I'm not going anywhere. You can't legally kick me out without a formal eviction process, which would take weeks. Oh yeah. Well, let's see how comfortable you feel living here when we make your life impossible. Threats. Perfect. That will just give my lawyer more ammunition. Emily opened her mouth to respond, but was interrupted by the sound of the front door opening. Mark ran in, still in his work uniform. He looked sweaty and agitated. I left early, he panted. We need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about, Emily said bitterly. She's already decided. She's going to destroy us. I'm not destroying anything, I replied calmly. I'm just taking back what belongs to me. You destroyed yourselves when you decided to steal from me." Mark collapsed onto the couch, holding his head in his hands. "This is a disaster. A complete disaster. How much is the lawsuit asking for?" $55,000 that you stole, plus the $30,000 for the house down payment, with interest, plus damages. And my legal fees, I recited what Paul Torres had explained to me. That's over $100,000. We don't have that. Not even close. Then you'll have to sell the house. This is our house," Emily screamed. "We worked for years to have it, and I worked for 40 years as a nurse to have my savings. The savings you emptied in a matter of weeks." Mark stood up suddenly. All right, everybody calm down. Let's think about this clearly." He turned to me. "Eleanor, I understand you're upset. You have every right to be. But you have to understand our position, too. Yes, we took the money. It was a mistake. But we did it because we were desperate. I saw the Cancun brochures, the papers for the new car. That isn't desperation. It's greed. Those were just dreams. Things we wanted to do in the future. The real money, we used it to pay off debts, for house repairs, for day-to-day expenses. Lies. Everything that comes out of your mouths is a lie." Mark clenched his fists, his frustration growing. "You know what really bothers me? That you act like you're some kind of saint, like you've never done anything wrong in your life. You live here for free. You eat our food. You use our utilities. Have you ever paid us rent? Utilities? No. I've given you thousands of dollars over the years. And I sold my condo to come live here because Emily insisted. I didn't ask for this, but you accepted it. You accepted living here. You accepted us taking care of you. And now you repay us like this, by destroying your own family. You destroyed this family when you decided my love and my trust were worthless. The following days were the most difficult of my life. Emily and Mark kept their promise to make my life impossible. They stopped speaking to me completely. When I entered a room, they left. They didn't buy food I could eat. They locked the kitchen at night. They changed the Wi-Fi password so I couldn't have access. But I stood firm. Every petty cruelty, every attempt to make me feel bad, only confirmed that I had made the right decision. Paul Torres worked quickly. In 2 weeks, we had a date for the preliminary hearing. Emily and Mark hired a lawyer, but according to Paul, their case was weak. The evidence against them was overwhelming. The morning of the hearing, I dressed in my best clothes. Paul picked me up in his car because he knew Emily wouldn't drive me. On the way to the courthouse, we reviewed everything one last time. "Remember," he told me, "stay calm. No matter what they say, don't react with emotion. Let the evidence speak for itself." The courthouse was an imposing concrete building. We went inside and sat in a small hearing room. Emily and Mark arrived minutes later with their lawyer, a young man who looked nervous. The judge was a woman in her 60s, with gray hair and a serious expression. She listened to both sides attentively. Emily's lawyer tried to argue that she had legal authorization to manage my accounts, that she hadn't done anything illegal. But Paul presented the screenshots showing the massive transfers. He presented the written testimony from Mr. Martinez at the jewelry store. He presented my notebook with all the unrepaid loans. He presented the original documents Emily had me sign, which clearly specified her access was only for medical emergencies. When the judge asked Emily directly if she had used the money for her personal benefit, she couldn't lie under oath. She admitted everything. "And the jewelry?" the judge asked. "Did you have permission to sell it?" "No, Your Honor," Emily mumbled. "And the money from the sale, where is it?" I spent it." The judge took off her glasses and looked at all of us with an expression of profound disappointment. I have seen many cases of family financial abuse in my years on this bench, but it never ceases to shock me, the cruelty that can exist within families. She looked directly at Emily. "You, Miss Reeves, took advantage of your mother's trust in the most vile way possible. You not only stole her money, but you sold irreplaceable items of sentimental value. The fact that she is your mother makes this even more reprehensible." Emily kept her head down, unable to look at anyone. The judge delivered her ruling. Emily and Mark were ordered to repay me the $55,000 within 90 days. If they couldn't pay in cash, they would have to sell assets, including the house if necessary. They were also ordered to pay me an additional $15,000 for the jewelry, plus another $20,000 in damages. In total, $90,000. Furthermore, regarding the $30,000 for the house down payment, the judge determined I was entitled to an equivalent percentage of the property's current value. The house was now worth $250,000. I was entitled to 12%, which equated to an additional $30,000. The total amount you must pay is $120,000, the judge declared. You have 90 days to present an acceptable payment plan or proceed with the sale of assets. When we left the courthouse, Emily finally looked at me. Her eyes were red but dry. I hope you're happy. You're going to leave us with nothing. I didn't take anything from you. You did this to yourselves. You're a terrible mother. You know that? And you're a daughter who stole from her own mother. I think that's worse. That was the last conversation we ever had. Paul helped me pack my things that same afternoon. With the money the judge had ordered frozen until the end of the case, I was able to rent a small but comfortable apartment. It wasn't as large as the one I had before, but it was mine. Mine alone. 2 months later, Emily and Mark sold the house. They had no other choice. With the money from the sale, they paid me everything they owed. $120,000 deposited into a new account that only I controlled. I never heard from them again. They didn't call. They didn't write. They disappeared from my life as completely as if they had never existed. At first, it hurt. I'm not going to lie. I lost my daughter, my only family. There are nights when I still think about the little girl she was, about the good memories we shared before greed poisoned everything. But then, I remember that conversation I overheard. I remember their laughter as they planned my ruin. And then I know I did the right thing. I am 68 years old now. I live alone in my apartment. I have enough money to live comfortably for the rest of my days. I've made new friends in my building. Other women my age who understand what it's like to rebuild your life after a betrayal. I'm not rich. I'm not young. But I have something more valuable than that. I have my dignity. I have the satisfaction of knowing that I stood up for myself, that I didn't let them treat me as if I was worthless. Sometimes people think that because we are older, because we are mothers, we must put up with anything from our children. That motherly love means accepting abuse, forgiving the unforgivable, giving without limits until there is nothing left of us. But I learned something important. True love is reciprocal. If your children only see you as a source of money, as something to be used and discarded, then there is no real love there. There is only manipulation. And manipulation, no matter who it comes from, does not deserve to be tolerated. Defending myself didn't make me a bad mother. It made me a woman with dignity. And that, at the end of the day, is worth more than any relationship built on lies. If anyone is reading this and finds themselves in a similar situation, I want you to know something. You are not alone. And you have rights. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter if the person hurting you is your son, your daughter, or any other family member. You deserve respect. You deserve justice. And you deserve to live your final years in peace, not in the constant anxiety of being exploited by the people who should love you. I am Eleanor Reeves. I am 68 years old. And this is my story of how I got back not only my money, but my life.